Welcome to Lit Happens, Unpacking Senior English. I'm Adriel.
And I'm Belle.
We're experienced English teachers dedicating to supporting both new and experienced educators in a world in which we are often time poor, to empower our students to excel in their English studies.
If you're an English teacher like us, navigating this curriculum, then this podcast is designed with you in mind. And our mission really is to break down the complexities by unpacking English nationally. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Lit Happens episode. This is episode 28, S.O.S. Paper 2, Section 1. You're in for a real treat this week, guys. We're going to be looking at Section 1 of our exams, Module A for Standard and also Module A for Advanced. As always, we've got Adriel here with us today. Hello, Adriel. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you, Bill. We're on the well and truly in our prep for trials phases right now, and definitely my head hurts, but we're good to go. We're good to keep going.
That's it. Honestly, guys, we've all been thinking about you. We know it's term 3. We know that the next 2-3 weeks, are going to be revision strategy time, supporting your students, and we were hoping to support you guys in turn. So just like last week where we did Section 2 of Paper 1, and obviously we've done Section 1 of Paper 1, the common module. This week we're looking at our other modules, starting with Module A. We'll be doing an episode on Module B and Module C, so, keep in tune. This is part of our trial series, but yeah, we just want to say we see you. We know the background work that you've been doing these school holidays to prepare your guys. And we're really, really proud of you, as you should be proud of yourself. You're working really hard there. And as always, we're hoping that we can just add a little bit of extra info to maybe alleviate some of the pressure placed on you guys.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we get into our episode, we might start then with our lit and quit, Adriel, which for this week is, this is a good one because I know some people who are into it and some who are like hard no. All right. Running Year 12 holiday workshops during the school holidays to prepare the students for trials. Adriel.
I have been a big believer of quit for this for a very long time as an English teacher. A very long time because, let me just put it out there, was because a lot of what we do now is students just drafting for trials, so doing their writing. I don't like the idea of going into a holiday workshop as being something where students expect it to be a time when you are going to go over the content. So what can you expect? Like my thought process, what can you expect to learn in a 3-hour holiday workshop with content in regards to content, which you haven't learned across the whole term? In saying that, I did go in this past holiday and ran a little bit of a workshop. Which was quite nice, actually.
How was
it was
it?
quite nice with the students. And basically, I had prefaced them all. I said, bring in your writing. We're just going to go over writing activities. So basically, all we did was I'd put a timer on the board. We looked at a few questions. We broke down the past HSC questions and basically got the students to write. Like there wasn't any teaching. It was more just a skills workshop. So that was good. But yeah, look, overall, for me, it's generally a quit sort of thing because students can always send you all of their drafts and you can just pop comments up online with the accessibility we have these days. So, I guess
that's good.
I guess the benefit of going in was that you can teach them how to write under time conditions a little bit or get that process where they have someone guiding them. But I'm still probably more in the quit camp there.
Look, I have to say I'm more on the quit camp as well. just because I feel like it can put in certain maybe schools or demographics, it can put more pressures on teachers, where a bit like what you said at the start, where students might be thinking they're going to get this big whole thing put together of new content within 3 hours. Like it just doesn't really work that way, not for English at least. I can't comment on other subjects, but I think it puts a lot of pressure for teachers. And, sometimes we have cohorts where they're working really well with us. They're working hard. They're sending our drafts. And sometimes you have cohorts where they're really doing bare minimum. And it makes it difficult to want to go in the holidays where you've got, not only your prep and school prep that you're doing, but like we talked about before we hit record, Adriel, all the life admin that teachers tend to get done in that 2-3 week school holidays. So I've always overwhelmingly been in the I'm not doing that personally. I think there is merit in people who do it, and I love the way that you did it, where you were like, I'll come in and to be there as that extra guidance, but really the whole point of this is you're working. This is more skills based. So I love that. I think that is a perfect compromise, because maybe students sometimes do want a space where they can come in and, I know we're distracted in our homes, like especially if you've got like a setup in your bedroom, it's like, is your room a rest space? Is it a study space? Is it both? So I can see where maybe students sometimes just want that kind of physical space, but I love that they didn't have that expectation on you to be producing new content. They just wanted that space to work. So it sounds like you had a really, really nice workshop building rapport with your year 12s. It's wonderful.
Love that. Yeah. So look, don't feel the pressure, teachers. I don't think it's needed in English.
You're not getting any pressure from Adriel and I. You guys work way too hard as is. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
That's
right.
All right, let's get into our episode then, because I bet people are like really keen now to get into the trial paper section 1. So just a reminder for any new scheme teachers, if it's the standard paper, this is Module A, Identity, Language and Culture. If you're doing the advanced paper, this is the Module A, Textual Conversations, the comparatives. So let's get into then our first question. So to start with, Adriel, I think what our teachers would like is, it worked for us well last week, this idea of like an overview. So what is section 1 in paper 2 specifically? Because we know there's a difference between the papers. So what is it? And what could we kind of expect to see in the HSC trial exam version of paper 2 section 1?
Yeah, so if we are looking at our advanced cohort, first and foremost here, you are looking at textual conversations, and this is requiring the analysis of intertextual dialogue between 2 texts or 2 prescribed texts that they will have studied across that term. And we sort of look at this as, the pretext and then the latter text and how they sort of speak with each other. And if you are in the standard cohort, you are looking at language, identity, and culture. And this is a study of, I guess, those ideas, how language is used to shape identity and culture within text, or how it is represented within text. So 2 distinct units, I guess, for the standard and advanced course. And you can see where the advanced course will be a little bit more difficult in the intertextual dialogue that is required for students. In saying that, though, for standard English, say, for example, we used to do Asian Australian poets as part of the study for standard English back when we were at our previous school there. And in that unit there, you're still looking at intertextual dialogue between the different poems in that unit that students will come across. So it is more of a critical unit. This is an essay expectation in this section of the HSC trial paper. It is a 20-mark section, so 20, 20, 20 you'll see in paper 2, so 3 sections worth 20 marks each. It's a 120-minute examination, which means students should allocate 40 minutes to complete this essay. So yeah, look, some of those core sort of ideas, if we go back to the reflection in terms of what intertextual dialogue may look like, students are going to examine how the text reinterpret ideas. There might be things like shared motifs or contextual influences for textual conversations. And similarly, in standard English's language, identity, and culture, you're still looking at how some of these ideas are presented across all of the respective texts that you study, or within the one prescribed text if you are looking at one text in particular. The section here is one that requires students to still be critical in nature, as we are still looking at the essay form. And again, if we look at some of those band descriptors that we've discussed in previous episodes, the sound responses are going to be more of that descriptive nature, which lack that intertextual depth. Your effective response, the band 5 responses, are more analytical in nature. And then your band 6s will be those more sophisticated, nuanced responses, which we have spoken at length in our previous episodes. So if you haven't listen to that, jump on board, and just go back and
Yes.
listen to those, and we'll piggyback off of that in today's episode. So yeah,
Perfect.
definitely quite a few different things in this section, but yeah, it's either language identity and culture for standard English or those textual conversations that we're looking for in the advanced course.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect. That's so helpful. Thank you. So just to recap for you guys as well, a few things to remember to take away is that 40 minutes is really crucial. And yes, it's an essay response, but as Adriel really, really thoroughly put out for you, it's going to, the difference is going to be, you know, how effectively that response is hitting those band markers in terms of, is it soundly representing the module? Is it effectively representing the module, or a more sophisticated approach? So, okay. So paper 2, section 1, 40-minute module 8 essay. Let's look at now the next question I have for you, which is, what kinds of questions now will we be looking at in module A? So what kind of questions for, let's say, the advanced module A rubric versus the standard module A rubric?
Let's start off again with the advanced question. And
Sure.
these are going to be like your broad focused questions. You may receive general or generic questions, which could be broadly focused on the intertextual connections. So, you know, it might be something along the lines of analyze how the texts engage in a textual conversation with each other regarding specific ideas. You might have text-specific questions here where, you know, they're looking at particular ideas, where you might evaluate how both texts represent a respective idea that has been studied across the term. And these will generally be like your more broad human experiences, I would say, like, you know, things to do with human beings. And this is why we start our study in the Year 12 course with that common module, I would say, is once students have a good understanding of some of those very general, like, applicable ideas to humanity, then they have a good sort of frame of which they can build on when it comes to paper 2. So don't neglect some of the ideas that you have looked at in the common module. It's very important for students to really understand this. And as teachers, we should emphasize this to our students, because those particular ideas will be often based off of these human experiences. I mean, we've both done reviews. I've done Don and Wit this year as well in my teaching. And, you know, a lot of the conversations are based on, you know, those human experiences. What do they face? And the textual dialogue is based off of that.
Yeah. And even the human qualities reflect really nicely human values. So again, values being a really big component of the advanced module A. That's an excellent and really, really easy tip to incorporate as well, Adriel. It's awesome.
Yeah, and then, like, if we start to look at our standard questions here, so your language, identity, and culture, these are a bit more theme-based questions that you will generally see with the standard course. So they will look at a particular idea, depending on what type of question you receive in the paper. So I think we spoke a little bit about this. There are 2 different types of questions you may receive, one that is applicable to all the prescribed texts, or you'll have the questions that are specific to the text that you have studied. So first and foremost, once again, we emphasize that we tell our students, make sure you are answering the correct question. That's very, very important. But your language, identity, culture is generally questions to do with how language represents identity and culture in the respective texts that the students have studied. So, you know, they might be looking at shared ideas of identity, maybe power, resilience, some of the societal values that are presented within that text. So, yeah, a few different things for our students to really, really understand here. And again, we say this with, I guess, due diligence and an understanding how the papers have been structured. Even in the standard courses, if you want your students aiming towards those band 5s, high band 5s and 6s, they still need to understand how to have that sophisticated, nuanced response where they're providing like that evaluation in their responses. And it's something that we really want to drill in. I mean, we've had a bit of success in our standard courses before. I remember in 2019, I'm going to do a little bit of a shout out here. I don't normally like doing this, but my student who did come, what was it, in the top 15 of the state for that respective response, not respective response, sorry, for standard English. She was so diligent when it came to understanding these verbs and just practicing her writing. So diligent. And it's something that you want to continue to encourage students to understand. What is the verb asking of you? Those verb expectations are very, very important. And she really understood that. That took her to the levels in which she did. And I mean, you probably attest to this. You had the student through the junior school, and she was not someone who you would say English was her favorite subject. It was more just you provide a formula and you build that confidence with her, and off she goes. And look, she did really, really well throughout the whole paper because of some of these principles that we have been taught and we sort of bestowed upon her. So, very
without a doubt. Because without that confidence, I say this time and again to my guys, it kind of doesn't matter sometimes how great your analysis or what you've prepared is if you don't have the confidence to fulfill it and action it. And I think that's where I saw you worked really hard with this student, is through these principles and strategies, helping her instill that confidence within herself. To then go on and do that. And it was a huge transformation. It's credit to both of you, absolutely. I think the thing to take away then from this question is having analysis or, skeleton essay or what have you that has gone through a range of different questions and is therefore really strong enough to be able to adapt to whether it's a generic rubric question or a specific text question, or maybe a question that's encouraging form. Because I think then if your analysis is really holistic and solid, it's probably quite hard to get a question that a student cannot work with on the spot, right, Adriel?
Yeah, 100%. And this goes back to like what we were talking about last week, where, should students have those pre-prepared essay responses? I think that was our little quick question. This is where it's important to have those bases, I would say, and then going back to like speaking about the student, she had everything in place before she went in. So she had that peace of mind. This is how I'm going to adapt my question on the day to various questions that she may receive. And look, that's like, it's funny when we look at like some of the statistics for standard English in particular, and this was a standard student, getting the band 6 in standard English is very, very difficult. As some of you may have looked at your app data. And, students are definitely very, very capable of doing it. And it's just, again, it's you as a teacher understanding, okay, this is what my student needs. This is what we need to address so that they can adapt on the day to the respective questions that they might receive. So, again, it's quite significant. Look at all the different verbs. Again, as I just mentioned with language, identity, and culture, it's how language represents those ideas of identity and culture. And it's something that you see in the common module. This is for standard as well. So make those links. Make those links. It's not like they're recreating the wheel. If they've developed something profound for common module, they can build off of that for then their module A essay. And similarly speaking for advanced English, where we're looking at textual conversations, the techniques are going to be very similar as well, depending on the text types that you're looking at. But we are looking at language, structure, and form, aren't we? So what are some of those similar techniques? How are they effectively used to construct these ideas of textual dialogue? How do each of the texts speak with each other? So quite significant for us to sort of give our students that base there.
Yeah, you're right. And students, advanced students who get the high band 5s and the band 6s, they do strategically prepare and make sure that each kind of body paragraph of analysis that they have has an aspect of form, has a specific context, has their specific language features that connect or help a dialogue occur between the two texts. So it's a very, very fine-tuned strategic approach that takes terms, weeks, not just I'm going to prepare a week before. It's very much a process, isn't it? It's funny, Adriel, I was just thinking when, we used to work at our school together, it was definitely a bigger deal when a standard kid would get band sixes as opposed to when advanced kids got band sixes. It was like, what? Do you remember? Yeah, it's just because it can be so hard and so elusive, you know. Yeah, I think you've given a lot of teachers, though, some particularly standard teachers, some really good food for thought for how they can help push their kids who are trying to perform really, really well in that course, because it is possible. It can be difficult, but it's still possible. So you've given great suggestions there. All right, let's move on to our third section now of our episode, where we want to look at what strategies can be used to encourage students to write for Module A under exam conditions.
Yeah. I think one of the few of the things, like we've already mentioned this, make sure you guys have some form of essay writing done as practice beforehand. So students are practicing their writing. So as I mentioned in our holiday workshops, it's like give them timed questions. Very, very important. Make sure they analyze the questions. They are answering and addressing the needs of the questions. Just the simple things. And that sounds simple, but we do have to emphasize that with them. A few practical things that we can get our students to really think about in our planning stages is, formulating flexible thesis statements. So they're prepared to adapt their thesis statements to a variety of questions on the day. Developing essay maps. So if you don't want to learn essays, which we haven't encouraged in any way, shape, or form, but some students need to, I guess. But essay maps are really good because it gives you an essay outline, like a structure that they can go into the response and follow. I think when we're starting to look at some writing strategies, get them to start to practice articulating those thesis statements, should I say, to the respective questions, making sure their context is important. So they're not going through providing irrelevant context. The context has to be focused both for language identity and culture and the textual conversations. And I think it's quite significant for textual conversations context, because you have to frame the idea. In their writing strategies there. Employing your writing structures. So when we've spoken about Peel or those T structures or whatever it might be, for students to really, really consider, and getting them familiarized with that. That's very, very important for this section. I think the big things for us, if we're aiming for those higher band descriptors, again, thinking about the more sophisticated, integrated, nuanced responses. That's what we want our students' writing to look like. Very, very important for us to sort of get to that. I can't undermine the importance of getting students to practice writing over and over and over again, especially in the next few weeks for their trials. And I mean, as teaching strategies, that's what you might do. If you've got your exams in week 3 or 4, you can do a little bit of content, but dedicate maybe half of your lesson to just writing practice, writing drills, put times up on the board. You might share some exemplar parts of exemplar responses in order to model those effective responses, or don't just give them the response, like either get them to highlight, break it down, give a mark, provide feedback based on criteria, so that kids are starting to think about why are they getting this, and then once they understand the why, that's what they can then work towards. But look, those are a few things that you guys already know, but really, really, planning your writing. So like I said, there's flexible thesis statements, essay maps or skeleton essays, and then just practice. And then if you haven't done so, practice some more. Like
that's it. That's it. No, you're right. Because ideally they would have some sort of analysis or essay from, an assessment task that they did on that module. So ideally they kind of have something that hopefully they have used the feedback from assessment period to address and to deepen. And so hopefully they've done that. And then something that I know some teachers do is they even say, bring your responses back in. Now is the time. Hopefully you've gone over it, but now is the time to go through those responses again and start writing, start trying out that stuff to new questions. Even if it's open book, like they can look at the intro that they have, get a new question and have 10 minutes to adapt. I think, like you said, write some more, because the students that we've worked at who get those band 5s and 6s, that's what they do. They are right. But, they start the term having semi-memorized everything, and now they're practicing and they're molding and they're working and they're kind of training that part of their brain, and it's helping them to memorize their stuff, but also not just memorize it to whack down a rote learned essay, which, as you said, and I totally agree, there are circumstances and students who maybe need to have that going in. But definitely students who are working hard, practice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into then the fourth section, our question 4, which is probably the one where is going to be most like adaptable or applicable in the classroom. So we want to hear now, Adriel, some of the top tips that you have for success in Module A of the trial exam. I know you've touched on some tips, but maybe anything else that stands out that we can discuss.
I think we have to start off by saying, even though this isn't a critical study in both standard or advanced English, so obviously we're doing that for Mod B, which is section 2 of paper 2, which is either your critical study or your close study of the text. I think students still need to have a comprehensive knowledge and understanding of the texts. So they need to know their text like the back of their hand. They have to have a good understanding and knowledge of the themes, the techniques, and the contexts of all the respective texts that they are studying. Very, very important, because if we want them creeping out of those band 3 and 4 responses, which are very superficial understandings of the texts, they need to have this prior knowledge. So we are looking more at those band 5 and 6 responses, which will provide that in-depth analysis. And I mean, if we want to take this further, there is a proficiency. If we're looking at Module A, textual conversations, there's a proficiency in intertextual analysis. Similarly, you can still have intertextual analysis for standard students as well. This is what will make their response stand out, and more so in the standard course. So just bear this in mind. So, I mean, if we're looking at how do we develop this proficiency here, we want to focus on how the text converse through those shared or reinterpreted themes and values. And this really aligns with the Module A rubrics for both standard and advanced English. I think also, when we touched on this, the regular timed writing practice, very, very important. But as teachers, some of the strategies that we can actually do is to, develop some maybe resources where you've got comparison charts for them, which have those comparative themes, maybe techniques across both texts, just as reminders or little bookmarks that students can keep. Get them to work on paragraphs, not whole essays. If you're struggling with writing a whole response, just those short writing activities. You might provide them with the NESA outline, so rubric or marking criteria from the respective sections from the HSC papers. And again, get them to maybe mark exemplar responses. This will get them to see the process, not just say, oh, cool, this is what an exemplar response looks like, but you want them to develop that understanding as to why this is a band 5 or 6 response. So I think that's very important. So I guess if I want to summate everything that I've just said, some of the key takeaways, make sure your students have a comprehensive textual knowledge. Their textual knowledge needs to align with the rubric statements for both standard and advanced English, and then timed practice is very, very important. So those are my 3 key takeaways for this, or recommendations for this section.
That's really helpful. Lots of great strategies. I really like in this phase to just look at questions with them and help them break them down. What typically works for me in my classes, one of the things is I'll have kind of 3 questions for their module. One that's a generic style question, one that's more specific or thematic, and one that's form-based. And then I'll probably spend a couple of days on each of them where it's almost like a little bit of a presentation, a little bit of workshopping. Like, I really like to, I think you talked about this before as well, but the thesis. Every student has to come in with a thesis. It could even be the thesis that was from the assessment, so be it. But I really like to workshop for like a 5-minute discussion and mind map on the board, like what are the key terms of the question? What aspects of the rubric might they be representing? And then everybody has to, all right, now you have 5 minutes to try and address this question using the bones of the thesis you have. And then after that, you can, I love your idea of chunking, because after that, once you did that, all right, now you have 10 minutes to, it can be open book, write an introduction around that thesis. Okay. Now we're going 10 minutes, do your body paragraph. How does your topic sentence change? So I think there's a lot to do, a lot that can be done, as obviously you guys are the experts in the room, and you know, you might be sitting here going, oh, my students are ready to just do practice questions, or you might be saying, I do need to recap. And there's no harm in mind mapping. I used to do it with my very capable advanced students too, like even just like a 10-15 minute activity to refresh their brain. Like, all right, what was the purpose, audience, and context? What was one large issue or value we were looking at? What were some of the sections? Sometimes it's just good to get them thinking like that on the spot. Yeah, I think there's so much to work with there.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think we'll go into our kind of last section now. So what would be some things, Adriel, that we might want students to remember, keep in mind when they're actually going into their Module A trial exam section now?
I think the big thing here is this, and this is for our students as well, and I should sort of emphasize this. As a student, if you're producing drafts, and as teachers that have been encouraging students to look at like those marking criterias and all that sort of stuff, the reason we're getting students to do that is so that they can self-reflect and they can self-evaluate. You know, I find a lot of students will often wait there. Like, we all get busy as teachers in school breaks, like I said, doing life admin. And as hard as we might try, you know, whether it be family commitments or whatever, sometimes we might not get back to students sending drafts for a few days. And this is where it's important for students to keep that in mind, that your teachers do have lives. And you as a teacher as well, please don't feel guilty that you aren't getting to all of the drafts. You have to live life as well. And this is why we try and encourage those good habits for students to really, really have that self-reflexive process. Where they can start to identify different parts. So in saying that, remember, they need to have that confidence in their preparation. Trust that this is a year-long study, all right? They have been studying this for over a year. It's not in those few hours that they spend on the holidays. And you as a student need to understand this as well. So if you've been doing it through the whole year, have confidence in yourself. Those band 5 and 6 responses will draw on a deep understanding of both texts, if you are doing the Module A, or, you know, that singular prescribed text if you are in part of standard English. But it is a very robust intertextual analysis or evaluation that you've developed. We've mentioned this before. Avoid relying on those memorized essays, like word for word, but you are trying to tailor your response to what is being asked on the day. So adaptability to the question is very, very important. This is where practicing or adjusting your thesis statements as students to different types of questions, as you've just mentioned before, Bill, you know, having those different types of questions, how can we adjust our thesis statements to respond to the different types of questions that you might receive? Very, very important. An emphasis for students on analysis, evaluation over description, and that's been said and done multiple times. Effective time management, we're going to continue to harp on about this. You want to be writing for at least a minimum of, like, you might spend 5 minutes planning. You're putting all your quotes down and developing like a little structure. I don't know, don't spend too long on it.
Don't spend too long.
Of 35 minutes. Just writing. You know, writing. Very, very, very important.
Writing when you're shaking your hand in that exam, totally normal.
Totally normal. That's right. Yeah. And also, avoid, like, it's so tempting to maybe just go onto the first 5 or 6 websites on Google, or, you know, even get AI to develop like last minute study notes for you these days. But your personal interpretation of the text, and this is why you need to have a good textual knowledge as a student, is so important. You want to offer unique textual insight. And this is aligning with Ness's sort of descriptors. And the only way to do that is you knowing your text inside out and having your own voice. So that's very, very important for all of our students. So, you know, if we're looking at some of those key takeaways there, you know, have confidence in yourself if you've done the work. Be prepared to adapt. and we're focusing on an analytical, maybe evaluative style of writing for this module, both in standard and advanced English.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. And, all your students should remember too that the trial exam is part of this process. It is part of this year-long process where you're working towards, the culmination of your study, of your interpretations that will be the HSC exam. But it's part of the process, and it is meant to be a learning curve. So, sometimes I worry that students put a lot of pressure on themselves in the trials, and I get it because there is a lot to be done. But it's also a very, very deliberate and organized thing, because we know how much of a difference it makes when you then get to the end of the HSC doing the actual final exam, that it's kind of like all the tension and the mystery around it, I think, is kind of gone once you do the trial. And therefore you get confident. There's confidence there just in that you know what to expect now. Sometimes it is a bit like it is a bit of a baptism by fire, guys, but that's okay. Not everything to your students, remind them, like we all know, not everything in life comes, easily instructed. It is structured. It is a baptism by fire, but it's a necessary baptism by fire, so that going in, eyes open, what's going to happen in the actual HSC. And I think that in itself is game changer.
Yeah, and I want to just add this last little part. I mean, we as teachers have discussed like the timing of trial examinations can definitely affect things, and yes, it can. And we as teachers have had multiple conversations regarding this. But if you're a student, there is no reason why you can't be getting past papers, and putting those mock conditions out there.
Yes,
and maybe giving mum or dad, or wherever you're studying, go to a library. I don't know, 120 minutes on the clock and attempt a section a paper. Do it properly. Like, you can mock your own trial examinations for any of your subjects, really. So yes, we have external factors that, can slightly affect it. But at the end of the day, if you really want something, you're going to go after it. And this is something that we want to encourage our students with. And the way you go after it is by not looking at the excuses, but really going after, okay, cool. Like, my teachers forgot to give me feedback for 4 days. I'm just not going to do any work. Well, really, you're just disadvantaging yourself, aren't you?
That's right.
Get on with
because
it.
you've been given everything you've needed. You've been given, your teachers are giving you everything and then some. And this is the perfect opportunity to actually see whether your study and exam strategy is working for you or not. Whether changes need to be made, or whether you just got to keep going with that process. Like, it's very, very eye-opening. Yeah,
100%. So there's some good things that students can do.
Yeah. So you said at the start of the episode, Adriel, which was a great reminder, if you have classes or students that need a deeper recap of certain Module A rubrics and texts, remember that if you guys look at our podcast, we've got quite a few episodes for Module A, both standard and advanced. We've even done, text combinations for Module A. So please go back and have a listen, because if you've got students who are still trying to fix up their analysis, then what we suggest in there could be helpful direction for them, and it might alleviate some pressure off of you guys as teachers as well. We do upload our episodes on YouTube, so you can definitely use them as flip learning opportunities, or if you have a day where you're out and you've got casual cover, there's no reason why casual can't kind of direct the kids to our episode or put it on, and they can actually just get some study tips from there as well. We're trying to be really practical and helpful for you guys.
That's wonderful. And we love doing this stuff, and it's definitely going to be hopefully helpful. So let us know what else you guys need and want.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for listening to this ep. Next week, we are going to continue with section 2 of paper 2, which will be our module Bs, both for advanced and standard. So continuing on that series. But let us know if you have some really helpful tips and strategies. We'd love to have a segment where we kind of share some of these things and give you guys a shout out. So please engage with us. Like, subscribe, share, comment, email us. We'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Take care, guys. See you next week. Bye.
Bye. Beautiful.
All right. Cool. Done. Done skis. All right. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Let me get my phone because it was